Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our virtual thought leadership discussion, Investing in the Future, Customer Centricity in the Digital Age. How is digitization impacting customer centricity in financial institutions? In today's session, we are joined with industry experts to dissect the role of technology in increasing consumer engagement with respect to the BFSI sector. I'm very happy to introduce the experts on our panel today. We have Mrs. Upma Goel, CFO, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank Limited. Mr. Harsh Dugar, Country Head for Wholesale Banking at the Federal Bank Limited. Mr. Kamlesh Vora, Senior Executive Vice President and Head of Customer Experience at Kotak Mahindra Bank. Mr. Vikram Gosar, Head Product and Digital Transformation at Dhani Stocks Limited. Mr. Kapil Dev, Executive Vice President, Head Business and Marketing, National Commodity and Derivative Exchange. Mr. Nitin Agarwal, President and Group CIO, Edelweiss Group. And Mr. John Chan, joining us from Singapore, Cloud Solutions Sales Director, Business Application at Asia Microsoft. A very warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I request our viewers to drop in their questions in the comment section. We are live on the Mint Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. Please do share your questions there. We will ask our experts to answer towards the end of our session. I would like to start the session with a question for all our speakers. How have consumer expectations changed in COVID and post-COVID? I mean, I don't really know if we are really at a post-COVID situation, but how have our consumer expectations changed, and what measures are you taking for personalizing this consumer journey in a segment where it's extremely hard? I mean, security, trust, all of these are important, and a personal touch point becomes significant in such a case. Maybe Mr. Dugar, you could start off. You're on mute.
Hi, sorry. Very good afternoon, and thank you. See, the digital journey, if you ask me, everybody wanted it to be a seamless, a real-time, and a personal experience. But what this pandemic has done is expedited the whole journey itself. That's number one. So we have actually seen a up to 35% increase in the digital users, the first-time users, and a 75% increase in volume. What we saw a noticeable difference is that the consumers today wanted more contactless and very secure way of dealing with each other. That was one. We have also done a lot of we launched a lot of products and services, keeping this in mind. Like we launched the video KYC, video account opening, where you can open account opening in a matter of a couple of minutes for doing this. We've launched a full mobile banking platform where the entire digital services, like a mini digital bank, we did that part. Even in the wholesale banking side, we moved to issuances of commercial paper in tie-up with NSDL, completely digital, paperless, and online. So these are the kind of activities which has propelled it. So we see the usage much more higher than what it used to be at this point in time, purely because people wanted more contactless and people wanted seamless.
Mr. Vora, would you like to add to that from Kotak Mahindra point of view? It's a fairly large bank dealing with a very new sort of challenge. Yeah. So you're on, yes.
First of all, thank you very much for having me on this show. Honored to be sharing this dais with all of you and sharing my views here. Let me first start by saying what has COVID done to all of us, and then we can kind of go back and see what exactly are we as organizations doing to possibly engage our customers and move forward. I think one of the first things that happened through COVID, and we all know, going back to the early days of how there was a lot of fear. The fear continues to be there even today, and the fear is more for safety and security. Which has also led to a lot of anxiety amongst people, anxiety in terms of job security, anxiety in terms of where do I go with my investments, anxiety in terms about the overall future or what is in store for us. How long would this continue? It kind of seemed to be a couple of weeks, maybe a month at best, but then it kind of extended. And today we know that there is definitely a long drawn up in front of us. It's an uphill task waiting for vaccines to come. But all this, in terms of safety, security being the primary focus, and anxiety has led to a lot of changes in the way consumers are behaving, consumers are expecting interactions with us. Not only that, it's also the way the organizations are now wanting to engage with the customers. Because while you want to serve your customers, how do you ensure that your employees who are the front line, who are in touch with the customers, are also safe, and they pass on that same message of safety and security to your customers? I think a lot happened, and like Harsh mentioned, that the entire banking industry was talking about digitization, but COVID actually accelerated the entire uptake curve in terms of adoption drive, which was more of a push from the organizations, because they wanted customers to go there. A lot of customers also wanted to, but this change in terms of their drive towards safety and security actually accelerated the migration towards digital. We saw that in the retail banking space, that in the first few months, branch traffic almost came down to a halt. There was hardly any people wanting to come to the branch. It's about 20% possibly. In some high volume traffic branches, there may be a little more footfall, but people were not really wanting to come to the bank branches to transact. And thankfully, because we had invested in technology and we had digital banking solutions available, we could see also a surge of uptake in terms of transactions on the digital platform, be it in terms of transactions of transfers, be it also service requests coming online. Your call centers became a line of support. People in such tiring times, when you are kind of anxious, you want to be able to reach out and be in touch with your organization, to the entity that you do with as a business. And for example, in a banking category, if I need to reach, and I know that I can't go to the bank branch, and I'm not possibly comfortable doing transactions on the technology platform, I rely on call centers. So how do you ensure that call centers are available? And we were able to kind of engage with our customers with a distributed call center that we quickly set up for our people, and we were up and running. Additionally, the investments that we had done as a bank in terms of chatbots and voice bots came significantly handy. And technology can be a significant force multiplier if used well. It can kind of ensure that a lot of mundane activities could be taken care through the bot, which is what we did. We saw a significant uptake on that as well, and that, I think, in my mind, is a way forward. The do-it-yourself approach, which is what we always wanted as a banks to go with, we see an acceleration in that. So, in my view, these are the things that we are seeing and how organizations are reacting to it. A lot of things in terms of, since you can't come to the ATMs to withdraw cash because you're afraid, banks came up, we kind of launched a mobile ATM. So we will come to your doorstep. We will ensure that you provide your safety and security. When you walk into the bank branch, if you did have to walk into the bank branch, which we would strongly recommend not to because of your own safety, we have technology platforms that you can do everything. But if you did have to still come to the bank branches, we would ensure that our people are adequately trained. You ensure that you have sanitized the place well. You are with a mask. And where I'm coming to is that I have noticed that when you are transacting and you kind of reach out to in your local areas for any face-to-face interaction, customers were kind of very mindful of what kind of safety measures that you did provide. So these are some of the things that we did, and a long way to go for us. Yeah.
Interesting. So definitely a lot of investments, and banks in general have been looking to push the digital online banking for a few years now, and those investments made in the past few years have really helped be prepared in this time. But there's obviously a new challenge, right? You spoke about customer call centers. Many of these guys are working from home. So how do you manage those customer expectations at a time? And customer expectations are really high. I mean, you have Amazon, you have Netflix. I mean, the expectations what customers want from brands today is extremely high, which is hard for the BFSI sector. Coming to you, Mrs. Goel, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, the whole digitization, acceleration of digitization that has taken place in the last 9 months, how has the company dealt with it? How have you ensured your customer expectations are same, if not better than what they were before? Ma'am, you're on mute. Sorry, I will unmute you. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I go by the customer expectation, so one important behavior change what we have seen is customer has started following the very conservative approach. So they started preserving cash or the cash equivalent. So one thing what we have observed as a retail bank is there has been a surge in the money which is getting deposited into the savings accounts and the fixed deposits. Second important thing is yes, contactless transactions. So there has been a good surge into the contactless transactions. Our model is primarily earlier was more on a touch base and more touch point based model. So what we have done is during this period and to make sure that the customers get the seamless experience and there should not be any hindrance as far as the transactions with the banking transaction as well as the repayment of their EMIs. We have opened up a good amount of collection centers which is very close to their places, so they need not go to the bank and stand into the ATM for the withdrawals. They can use those touch points which they can go to the kirana shop and use their touch points, and then they can deposit the cash, they can withdraw. So that banking experience we'll try it, and we make sure that it reaches to the very close to the customers and making sure that the customer is safe from if the customer is going to the kirana shop, they can he or she can also avail those services. Apart from opening up those channels, we have also enabled all the channels onto the digital payments, whether it is they have any app, whether it is Google Pay, Phone Pay, anything, Paytm, uh, Instamojo, so they can start paying the EMIs to us. And while making the EMIs, they can also use the
I think we're having some technical issues. Mr. Agarwal, if you would like to sort of add here, how has consumer expectations changed in the past few months, and as a company, how have you sort of reacted to it, dealt with it? Mr. Agarwal? Yes, sir.
Okay. So yes. So I just want to take over from where Kamlesh talked about. I think what COVID has essentially done is emergence of DIY, which is do it yourself. All of us who had experience of help at the house and so on and so forth. An initial phase of COVID where a lot of tasks were being done by the people themselves, and that experience is gone to the people in doing financial services also on their own, which typically may at some places be done through a touch method or even a assisted method. So I think that is a huge change in the way customers have behaved. And when customers have behaved that way, more than customer expectation, my belief it's the internal systems and processes and the needs which have gone through a CG. I think digitization has always been an agenda of the people, but there always have been internal challenges with respect to people for multiple reasons, right? And some of those reasons are more, quote unquote, corporate reasons also. Everybody finds a value, and because they are just there, adoption of a new and a what if scenario kind of changes. What COVID essentially has done, it has just taken away all the options away from our organization. So whether are you filling a digital form or whether customer will fill, no more is that question. The only option is customer will fill digital, and then there's no obstruction in the company to say whether should I launch a digital channel or not. So I think that obstruction, that friction in the companies have gone away, and that has changed the whole landscape in terms of how are we able to provide the customer experience. One more very important point is uh, we distinguish between customer experience and customer interaction. Customer interaction is a very small part of customer experience, and I can take the Amazon example or a Netflix example. Your ordering of a system or your ordering of whatever order you're placing on Amazon is an interaction that you're doing with Amazon. But every time you need to talk to somebody, you have already reduced the customer experience, right? You've already gone a notch down. The need for talking itself has to be taken away. And the second part of the biggest part of the experience is after you've ordered, whatever goes in the background, whatever you've been promised, and whether the goods get delivered. I think that is what the customer experience is saying. The need has to be taken away. And to provide that experience, organizations have to do much more. There is obviously a work which needs to be done on the interaction front, but a experience front, there is probably 10x more effort. Your systems, your processes, your data ecosystem, your analytics ecosystem, your machine learning ecosystem, all that has to change, and that's been a big focus as the Edelweiss end, because interaction we always feel is only a 10% of the part. To provide the holistic experience, the organizations have to internally change, and that's what we've been focusing on across our business processes. The business processes are changing. Every time customer wants to talk to us, we feel we have failed in experience itself. It could be most of the things. Obviously, there are industries, and I'm making a overarching statement. There are things like in wholesale banking or complex product like a life insurance where somebody would want to talk to you, understand more about the product. They're not simple like making a UPI WhatsApp payment. They're complex products. But I think the need for making products simpler, making journeys simpler, being able to deliver without customer thinking twice about it is what is the customer experience is changing. And I think from that direction, we're taking a more longer term view in and a holistic definition of customer experience rather than just customer interaction.
Interesting. So basically, from a company lens, of course, you need to reduce interactions. You need to automate more processes and make it simpler as much as possible. But from a customer point of view, especially for BFSI, this is sort of a dichotomy, right? Because customers want security, want to be able to speak to a person, especially when their money is involved. So there is a challenge. Coming to Mr. Dugar. Sorry, I wanted to.
I would in fact question that itself is saying customer needs to talk to somebody. I am not sure whether that's the right statement to make. We make 180 crore transactions on a UPI. Nobody's talking to anybody, right? The customer need for talk itself is reduced because customer is very comfortable of not talking to somebody is interacting in digital world, and that's what the last decade and the journey of the customer has been. So I do question the customer needs to talk. In most of the places they don't. And I'm not making a holistic statement like wholesale banking, etc. But I think that assumption itself needs to be questioned whether customer need is at a
I'll
lot of
just
things.
sub I'll just supplement here what he's saying. I would agree, but I would divide it into two parts. One is transactional, where the customer wants his transaction done and his need for human interaction is very low. But when it comes to advisory support or getting some kind of a feedback, a human interaction definitely helps in taking the decision faster. And it also creates stickiness in relationships. So this is how I would divide the two pieces.
Right. Right. Interesting.
And I
Mr.
just go back to, somebody who's been familiar with Citi. Citi was the first one in the country to not give passports. And customers said, how can you not give a passport? If passport is not there, then my money is lost, right? Today we don't even talk about passport for large part of the country, right? So it wasn't a customer need from that perspective. I think the industry needed to change a little bit from that.
Mr. Gosar, would you want to add to that from a consumer experience point of view? How have things changed over the past 9 months?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be a part of this Mint CXO dialogue panel discussion. See, COVID has disrupted everybody's life. We all know that. And due to the lockdown, what happened is what we saw is customer wanted to trade online. Prospective clients wanted to open new trading account and demat account as stock markets were going up. We saw that they wanted the account open in few minutes because they want to place orders immediately. They didn't want to wait. And the last thing what we saw was that they all wanted lower brokerage charges. So we at Dhani, did all of these things. What we did is we increased the capacity of our systems so that more and more customers can log in online or on a mobile app and execute their trade. We redesigned our onboarding journey, which is a zero contact paperless journey now with minimum screens and minimum data entry so that customers feel this very easy to open an account. Next, what we did is we reduced the account opening tag to less than an hour. So once a client finish submission his form and e-sign the document, within an hour probably he can start placing the orders. So that is what we did to our processes. Also, we introduced the processes like EDIS, through which the client could place sale orders without POA because it was not possible for the customers to do POA in lockdown because of the courier and other issues. And for lower brokerage charges, we introduced a lot of new schemes for the customers and new plans for the customer. In fact, we introduced one such plan where we offer unlimited trading to our customers at a fixed price. So this is what attracted a lot of customers. It becomes a fixed price and you trade as much as you want. Last thing for personalization, what we did is we introduced multiple language options on our website. We are soon doing that on our app also. So how it is helping out is the clients who are in tier 2, tier 3 cities, they can choose the website language by their own, or they can choose the app language on their own, and they can transact much more easier. So the customer is getting that personalized feeling. So these are something what we did, and we saw a very good impact of this. We saw huge increase in volumes because of this new accounts getting opened.
Thank you. John, sort of pulling in you here as part of the discussion, I wanted to understand from a customer experience point of view, there are certain sectors which sort of lead from the front. We spoke of Amazon, Netflix. There are other brands as well that are trying to sort of make the headway. BFSI is particularly hard, right? What have you seen in the last 9 months? How have this sector leveraged digital as processes and tools available to make that a reality, and especially I mean from a regional perspective, because you're in Singapore, you're looking at what's happening across different countries. What value could you sort of yeah.
Yeah, and again, firstly, thank you for inviting me to this panel. It's very insightful talking to everyone here. So, I mean, to be honest, we're at Microsoft. We've been talking about digital transformation for a while now, and to everyone's point on the panel, all COVID really did was accelerate those conversations. So for us, we've always been looking at how we could digitize a lot of those customer experiences, and our vision going forward, I think a fellow panelist just mentioned, is around how do we create those seamless end-to-end experiences, and a lot of that, to get that seamless end-to-end experiences, really involves process automation, orchestration of that customer journey across all those different touch points that he or she may have with the bank. So what we've seen is, for some of the tools that we've used, or some of our customers have used, very simply at the height of the pandemic, but when we first went in, I think a lot of focus was obviously on how the banks could proactively reach out to the end customers. So we saw a lot of volume going through to the contact centers, and how we could help those customers deflect a lot of those potentially less lower value kind of inquiries to a lower value channel. So we helped customers that implement chatbots very quickly within space of a couple of days, things like that. We had customers. I was working with an insurance provider based out of North Asia, where they started to use collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, which in effect, as you know, with insurance, a lot of it is around advisory services. So it's really how they could still maintain that contactless experience with the end clients in advisory modes, but using tools like Microsoft Teams to enable that. So we've seen obviously that acceleration come through due to COVID, but again, we've been working with customers in the last 3 to 5 years as customers have been embarking on their digital transformations anyway. So a lot of this isn't new to us. It's just that it's just been acceleration in the last 9 months.
So, in fact, Mr. Duga just mentioned it, right? I mean, transactional versus advisory. Some of the transactional ones have been automated. You mentioned value, right? I mean, how do you sort of differentiate between things which are sort of low value transactions, automated ones that require a higher order of sort of intelligence or interaction happening? That you will still have a personal interaction in such a case. Mr. Vora, coming to you, what role has enterprise technologies such as CRM what role has it played in enabling customer centricity and in meeting changing customer expectations? These investments have been made pretty early into for many banks, but the role and the focus on these platforms have sort of become much more in the past 9 months, right?
Absolutely agree with you. As I said in my earlier conversation as well, technology is essentially a force multiplier. And like some of our fellow panelists also mentioned that it's about getting the entire end-to-end journeys right. Where does technology and CRM technologies kind of come in? We go back to how we as human beings are wired, and while we will do automations to manage our transactions, but there are interactions which are human interactions, because ultimately human beings are social people, and we would like to interact with people, and it makes us a sense of feeling. It kind of you want to see empathy. You want to see when somebody is talking to you, whether it's a machine or a humanoid or a person talking. You want to see that empathy, and you want to see something which is for me. Where can you bring that intelligence? And that is where CRM technologies come in place. Any client relationship manager systems come in place, reminding me about who the client is. As banks, we say many a times that we all do KYC, but in essence, how much do we really know our customers? And if I want to know the customers, it has to go beyond just getting to know his date of birth, his anniversaries, and sending him those postcards. Those are very, very basic things which used to be done. Like somebody gave an example of, one of our colleagues gave an example of Citibank did away with some of those passbook and kind of brought about, and kind of made some changes. I think these are things that we do today, but it is not really getting any notice or any eyeballs of the customer. It's like, okay, so what? You just send me a automated mailer which says happy birthday. So it's going beyond that. So if I really know my customer, do I really know where does he eat? When does he eat? Do I know what kind of communication does he prefer? What language does he really reach out to me in? If I know that he has been calling my call center, for what type of interaction? Is there any pattern that I can see about it? And if I were to see it, and this is where you bring analytics. If I were to see that, what do I do to really bring life and change his experience? Could be by way of being proactively doing certain things. If I know, for example, that some of us at a particular point in time always call the bank or seek for certain information, and that is a pattern, and you know that these are some kind of customers. For example, home loan. People who are taking a home loan would want to have documents for their tax filing returns, or for their submitting their documentation to their organization, or even at the time of filing returns. If I know that, could I proactively send out that to him? Why does he need to call me? Those are things that could happen here. If he reached me, would I know that, then you called me the last time, it was for this particular interaction that he speaks to me about. Could I nudge, not just close there, but then talk about the next likely thing that he's going to ask for? So technology can do a lot of things in terms of really showing that I care for you. See, we all say to our customers that we care for you. But the time has come that, the customer wants to know that, show me that you care for me. And if you have to really show to each of them and say that I care for you, it can't happen unless I have some smarts with me. Some technology tells me what is. See, as a human being, I want to serve him and I want to do the best. But give me the information readily available so that I can really, at a click of one button, I know more about that customer and I can talk to him. With technology, I can also be ready with information that, this customer is likely to be irate on these issues, and therefore when you're talking to him, what do I do? So there is a host of things that a platform technologies can provide. I mean, I'm just kind of giving you a couple of those interactions. It also is in terms of a funnel. So if I'm talking about acquisition, some friend from Dhani mentioned about, a lot of customers are coming on board. If I want to know at what point in the funnel are they kind of dropping off, or if there's anything, CRM solutions help me to really help them and kind of, engage proactively with my customers. So that's
interesting. So one view of the customer, especially for large companies where you have several business lines, that he might also be life insurance and a mutual fund and a banking customer, right? So you know a lot more about that. Combine that with sort of edge analytics to know that, okay, social media, this is what he's up to. How do I sort of then react to him better? I think This is great. I mean, if you're really able to do that, our experiences with many of these companies that we deal with can go up to another level. Uh, coming to Mr. Agarwal, I mean, how do you collaborate across various departments to create a singular view of the business and your customers? And this is really something that I just mentioned. How do you assess consumer engagement across these various touch points? Do you have systems like this in place? What is really the future for this?
Yeah, absolutely. And before just answer this question, extended or conscious way, I think from a CRM perspective, the approach from reactive to predictive is the biggest goal. Are you able to send the customer a communication before he asks for information? For example, we talked about home loan, right? Are you able to send a tax certificate when you know you will need one? Right? Not searching through the mailbox and stuff like that. The moment he's calling rather than asking him a question saying, "What is your problem?" Have you are your system predictive enough to know that there is a problem customer might have and he's calling for this reason and this is the answer? Right? More and more predictive response of a customer problem is what CRMs have gone into, and I think that's the way it has to go on, where organizations have to know the customer problem before customer realizes what customer problem is.
Hmm.
And I think that is the role or changing role of the CRM. And extended this question to extending this answer to the question you just asked. I think to enable this, what now organization needs is you mentioned customer 360, but what I call is it a unified data platform. Whether at the organization level, have you created a unified data platform where not necessarily your system, your processes are integrated, but your information, your KPI tracking, your end-to-end view of the process, the end-to-end view of a customer relationship. Any KPI which is missed, whether it is a profit KPI, whether it's a risk KPI, any KPI which is missed can be viewed in a single dashboard, which is protected, role protected, and everybody sitting at home, can work seamlessly without having a personal interaction and a touch point. Is what organizations need to do. In this journey, you are no more running a floor of 100 people per center or 100 people ops processes where I'm overseeing a person. The only way you can control this process is where your data across your systems is integrated, your KPIs across your processes are well defined, your KPI tracking is well defined, and any deviations of KPI is auto remediated in most cases, and responded to by whoever is responsible. And those are the big ticket changes, I would say, is what we're doing. So across our businesses, uh, in fact, during the COVID period across, each of our businesses have had a unified data platform which has been built right from scratch. The KPI is defined and tracking which has been defined, and that's been a singular most revolutionary aspect which has been done in such a short time. Every of my colleagues would know that data platforms can typically take years and so on and so forth. With the emergence of technology and the power of technology from um, likes of Microsoft and Amazon, we've been able to bring the data platforms off the box very very quickly. In fact, our fastest data implementation or data warehouse implementation in one of our business was straight 45 days right from scratch, where we were able to bring all the systems together, KPI together into a singular data platform, started reporting it. And that's the kind of experience and technology enables you to do if you're clear what you need to do.
Interesting. So one unified engine, all the collection is sort of coming at one place across all channels, and then sort of this business intelligence is coming out of that. That is really helping make decisions.
The engine is not unified. The data is unified. I think I'm just segregating that a little bit
The
because
collection is unified.
unify the engine. I think it's unifying the data is very very important, and that's a
Okay.
problem that you need to solve for.
One follow up question though there, you said 45 days. One of the biggest challenges many companies face is data sort of collection, which is really a people challenge, right? I mean, are people trained to collect all the data at the right points? Will they be able to sort of because unless you have structured data flowing in, it is not very useful many cases. Unless it's completely automated. So with social media, you're able to sort of get data off social media. But if there are individuals plugging in data at some points, how have you sort of dealt with that challenge, that culture within the company to make sure
I
that
think that's
we
the
are?
strength of your enterprise architecture design and a system and process design. How strong are your system and process design which are there across the various verticals? And again, 80 to 90% of the data in typical financial services will be a structured data, and if you design your systems well, that problem should be solved. And my belief is large part of organization have solved that problem. There is a separate problem of that data sitting in silos and not being able to integrate, but I think data is there in structured format. The second thing is even on the structured data, to make it a qualifying objective data, you have huge number of machine learning algorithms which are available. You have enough cognitive engines which are available, which can read a medical transcript to a customer sentiment and objectify it. I think those engines are also available and available to be used very, very quickly without you putting a lot of effort in training. They're literally available out of the box. I think the strength of your enterprise architecture is to able to consume that, quickly qualify, singularize the data, make it a single source of truth, and that's what synchronization of the data becomes a real challenge, right? I could have one customer in 5 different systems, and if he has 5 different email addresses and phone number, then obviously I'm up for a big problem. And if I have 5 different KYC, then I'm doomed, literally, in 5 systems or one customer, right? So I think the strength is around saying how well are your system and architecture design and how you're able to bring that data together. I think technology is there today, and technology is extremely fast paced if you can consume it, and there are enough solutions out of the box. The strategy becomes very, very important. The strength of architecture becomes very, very important.
Mr. Dugar, coming to you, how can brands grow themselves digitally to become more customer focused, and how do you translate that into a balance between cost and innovation? Because that's one of the biggest questions today, right? I mean, what do you invest in? There is definitely a cost attached to that. So how do you decide which are the areas what to sort of invest in, and make sure that because these are pressing times, and all business lines are expected to be frugal with their spends, right?
See, let me start off with a tagline which we actually carry off. One is digital at the fore, human at the core. This is a tagline which has been there, not during the pandemic times, it's been there for some time now. So the basic objective is that we realize that digital is the way forward, not just in banking products, but in general across segments, whether it's dining, it's holidaying, it's traveling. I think we're seeing that part. So that's a given part for us. What we realized that there are three important essential ingredients we are looking at. One, obviously, this migration to digital platform and do it yourself kind of a thing is reducing the pressure, cost pressures on us because the customers are doing the transactions themselves, which basically means the cost per transaction today and the manpower required is coming down substantially. So today, like I mentioned, for banks, between 85 to 95% of the transactions are today digital. So that has reduced the pressure on the branches to do more business, and cost per transaction has come down substantially. It's a fraction of what it is. The second part, which we realize, is it creates a significant amount of stickiness with the customer because once he's hooked on with you on a digital platform, it becomes very difficult for him to change. And I've seen that in the wholesale banking customers, the moment you do some customization and you do also integration, the customer is wedded to you. So it becomes, and especially in times like this, when banking products has become very commoditized, the stickiness is a strong platform. Third, coming to what additional business. Now today we have enough and more data available. Mining of the data is becoming important for generating businesses, and we are using big data, data analytics, machine learning to make it not just give the customer what he wants, but in many cases becoming more predictive in nature. So you realize from the way the customer behaves, either from social media points or the way he has been transacting his payment pattern, you realize what his requirements could be and what could his areas of interest be. So it is helping us in pushing those products to the customers. So the moment he opens his mobile banking app, and for a customer who has surplus lying in his account, you could suggest for multiple options as to where he could invest his money in. So this is coming in very handy. And the question between the cost and innovation, it's something which is a must-have. It's not something which we have an option. The only thing which we as a bank look at is we look at the high priority items, the items which are routine and have a lot of scale. We look at moving that to the digital much more quicker. But apart from that, what we have also been doing, and we have been interacting with a couple of other players who have been into neo banks and digital banking, to see from a customer experience point of view that we can move every transaction which a customer does on the digital platform. So over there, we've categorized it into high priority items and then gone ahead with it. But that's something, this is the way we have been looking forward in terms of on our digital journey.
Just coming on to the cost element of innovation, I think it's not about whether you're investing in cost on innovation. Innovation typically will lead to a replacement of a cost from one place to another. And I think most organizations struggle with that transition and change management. It's not easy to do a cost from a people process to technology process. Apple to Apple, it will always save you money. But I think it's that transition which is a big challenge, and I think every organization needs to plan as per their priorities, which is there.
John, coming to you, your perspective on this question. I mean, how essentially how do you do a balance between cost and innovation? I mean, we had a very interesting perspective. Of course, you do pull out some cost and you're able to invest in digital, right? So it really balances out. Most times, you're better off, is what Mr. Agarwal is saying. But your view on this?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that I would say there's a third element of this that we always need to kind of consider against the cost and innovation is what is the outcome that you're trying to drive with that innovation, and what is the actual business benefits that you're going to get out of that. Once you can quantify that, then it's a much easier conversation to kind of balance that out against cost, and that's what we do here. At Microsoft. Actually, my role is actually heavily working on activities like that, where we kind of talk to the customer, understand their priorities, and really try to ideate and reimagine, I guess, the customer journey against those priorities and those outcomes. And through that, once those outcomes and benefits are visualized or quantified, then really the cost perspective, kind of the cost argument side of things, kind of is easier to justify. And then obviously, if you can lay that out with the new journeys that has the innovation that actually is impactful. And to my colleague just now who talked about prioritization, I mean, there's when we do these kind of workshops with our customers, we always come up with lots of different ideas. But what we need to do is then prioritize these. Which are the high impact ones versus the low impact? Which are the ones that cost more or more difficult to implement through either just from technology or through change management and user adoption, versus those which are much easier to implement? Once we work out those different dimensions and paint a roadmap with the customer, then obviously like I said, that cost and innovation argument is a lot easier to have.
So John, just continuing with you here, and we can't have a discussion on digitization and BFSI without really talking about data security, right? I mean, that's a major focus area. And today, globally, there are so many, all jurisdictions are really struggling with tackling this question. So, given the context of COVID, investing in applications that enable contactless sales and service has become crucial, of course. So, how can financial institutions invest in these innovations without compromising data security? How do you sort of build that in to the core?
So really, for Microsoft, trust, data security, privacy is paramount to us. This is core tenets on our philosophy when we go and talk about digital transformation with our customers, be it on the Microsoft cloud or even in the private clouds. But so this is not something that's new to us. Like I said, it's first and foremost when we always talk about digital transformations of our customers. It's all around building that security around there, the data security to help our customers protect themselves from external cyber threats. That's paramount. Regardless if your data sits in our data centers, private data centers, on a phone or on a desktop, or even just doing a transit as you kind of transmit data across, it is number one priority for us, as well as privacy and control. The data, our philosophy is that the data always belongs to our customers. It's customers' data. We don't own that data. All we're doing is providing you the tools and resources to help you leverage the scale of cloud, for example, that will give you the innovation so that you can actually act upon that data that you own. So privacy, control, security, and we are very fully committed to being very transparent about this. As we all know, in the FSI industry, heavily regulated. So we take a step further by actually working with the likes of RBI, the ministry as well in India, to make sure that all our data centers and all our platform, our infrastructure as a service, as well as the software as a service, is all compliant with that's been set out by the ministry and the regulatory boards in India. So that's how important it is for us to have our banking customers, our FSI customers, trust when they're actually working with and partnering with Microsoft.
Right. I'd like just Mr. Gosar to add to that to this question of data security. How do you sort of look at it from a BFSI lens at a time when we are really looking to digitize the entire industry? And maybe Mr. Dugar, if you also want to add to that, because it's a major focus area for you. Mr. Gosar, please.
Yeah. See, for us, we serve our clients through online mode. That is, app and web for both sales, that is new client onboarding, and service, that is order execution. So we all know the future of money is changing. Digital has now become the mainstream, which means we have to prepare our architecture to connect to anything. Customer experience is number one priority, and digital fraud prevention is second. Striking the right balance between customer experience and risk is a very tricky situation. Customer acquisition is focused on normally customer delight and reducing frictions, whereas the fraud team are focused on reducing frauds, and they introduce additional security controls. So what I think is marketing, digital experience team, security and fraud management team should all work together to create approach which will help achieve the ultimate goal of security and frictionless experience. With the right tools in place and financial inclusion can build in customer trust without adding friction and provide an adaptive customer experience which can be aligned to business priorities. So, to create secure digital channel, controls need to be applied across life cycles like customer onboarding, account login and management, payments, and all other activities. The last point I would like to make is that the security should be a top priority for the top management, so that it flows till the last mile.
Right, right. So it has to come from the top for it to really work well. Mr. Dugar or Mr. Vora, yes, sir.
I just wanted to add to it that see, there is customer experience. There is a confusion, I think, at many times that customer experience and controls or security are conflicting. In my view, they are complementary. You don't find a single customer who says, "Give me the best experience. Let it be frictionless. But I'm okay if somebody can hack into my account because I have a best experience." Nobody says that. Nobody ever wants it. See, the challenge today is that everybody is aware about the risks that you have when you go and leave some of your details on the social media, but people are still comfortable to do so. Some are not. So both first and foremost, we need to understand that the security aspect and this experience are two sides of the same coin. They are complementary, and they need to work together to kind of deliver the value to the customer. Empowering customer, in my mind, in terms of ensuring and allowing him what does he wish to do on security aspects is very critical. Additionally, yes, what our friends mentioned, that on the overall platform, what do I need to do to ensure that their security is critical, but empowering customers, allowing him to do things which will make him more comfortable is, in my mind, extremely important.
I'll add one
Great.
thing over here. I would say the data security is not an option we have. It's a necessity. It's a basic hygiene factor without which you can't. Secondly, being in the banking industry, if there's an element of doubt regarding data security or financial, because we're dealing in financial products, I don't think we'll have customers coming to us either. So the very basic requirement is that data security, privacy has to be of paramount importance. I don't think we can compromise on that part.
Interesting. So it's much like how the aviation industry, the conversation starts from safety, everything else follows after that.
Exactly.
I mean, just imagine if you were to say that this flight that you are taking is 99% safe.
I got what you mean, but do you? So one is of course having the basics of security in place that everybody needs to have for sure. But do you also communicate this? Do you also communicate how secure your data is? Is it something that also forms a part of
No,
your conversation with the customer?
it is actually an integral part because security is two ways. One is obviously we provide robust systems, firewalls, and all those kind of things. But there's a lot of breach which happens because of lack of awareness on part of the customers. Sharing of pins, keeping the card details on your phone and giving it to somebody. So those are the kind of things which you'll need to necessarily having a strong password. So it's actually you can't do without the customer also being aware of it. So creating customer awareness is actually essential for not just for him but for the bank as well. And that's something which most banks do indulge in and invest in.
Great. Thank you. So I'm done with my questions, and there's one question from the audience that I found interesting. Maybe I'll just ask you. Uh, is gamification possible in terms of enhancing the customer experience when it comes to advisory? Is it something that banks are looking at? I am not very clear about the question, but in my mind, this is what it's supposed to mean. That essentially, can you enhance the experience online for consumers by gamifying it? So, for example, if you're selling a mutual fund or some other product, can you make it sort of interesting so that there is more interaction? Customers thereby understand the product better. It's educational in a way, and thereby it finally leads to purchase. Are we doing it? Is it possible? What is the thoughts here? Sorry.
I think I think on the couple of areas, whether you talk about an insurance product or a wealth management product, I think gamification have a very important role. You know, when I say gamification, it is basically essentially telling customers in terms of what if scenarios. Rather than saying if you do this, you will be protected. I think those teaching and learning and advisory that or financial literacy that you want to do of customer, whether for wealth preservation or a wealth growth or a protection, I think there is a scope. I don't think industry has utilized that to the extent that is possible as of today. But I personally think that there is a lot in there in terms of gamification, and especially when you talk about financial literacy and penetration of some of the newer products. Right, mutual fund is not a very penetrated product in this country. Insurance is not a very penetrated product.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
think gamification can play a very, very important role in a customer education scenario.
Investor education, right? Very interesting, Mr.
In,
Dugard. Yes.
Incidentally, we have used gamifications internally for employee education, learning, and development. So that's one part which is there. It also helps because it's more interactive, more participative, and hence the retention is much higher. And there's a sense of belonging which makes the decision making and the stickiness much more. Have we employed that in a significant manner in terms of selling? Well, we still would like to explore that part, but I don't think I've come across any bank who's done that in scale at this point in time. But it's really interesting idea to pursue.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Agarwal mentioned, I totally agree that in the investment space, how much do I need to save for a particular goal that I'm chasing? What would it look like if I were to? So, scenario building that we are talking about could be very nicely amplified and communicated through a gamification. Are banks doing it today? I think some of them may be in small bits and pieces, but whatever I'm hearing is that you will see some of it from some banks very soon.
Very interesting. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this discussion. This brings us to the end. Really want to thank you for taking the time out to all our guest speakers and sharing your valuable opinions with us. A big shout out to Microsoft for partnering with us for this series. This is us signing off. Stay well and take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. Thank you.